Hello, hello, hello. Welcome again. Genesis 29. Not too exciting of a chapter, but as always, there's things to learn. This one's more just a history, is all it is. Not a lot of exciting stuff. So we're getting started. King James Version, verse 1, Genesis 29. Then Jacob went on his journey. Remember, I should prelude if you haven't been following along. Jacob is going to Laban, basically his uncle's house, from a long ways away, to find a suitable wife. Jacob is living in the land of Isaac, of Abraham, in the land of the Canaanites, who are a totally different culture, completely different. It's not, again, this isn't like, an American moving to Mexico. So still relatively similar cultures, to be honest. This is not like that. This is not like that at all. This would be like you, right now, going and living in ancient Aztec culture or something. It's way different. The Canaanites' systems of virtues and values don't line up with anything that I can compare to today. So they're living kind of like a hostile land as far as the belief systems. And Jacob does not want... Isaac does not want Jacob to go the way of Ishmael, the way of Esau, and marrying one of these women who then introduced them to this other mysticism type religion where blood sacrifices and orgies and things like that are the norm. Self-service is the religion of these people. No. So Jacob is sent to his uncles to find someone who has similar virtues and values to those of Abraham's line. Anywho, that's where we're at. So, sorry about that little prelude. Here we go. Then Jacob went on his journey and came into the land of the peoples of the east. So, Shem's line, people of the east. If you're unaware, Shem is the father of Asians. Japheth, these are all Noah's three sons. Japheth is the father of Europeans, and Ham is the father of Africans. And no, it's not Ham's line that's cursed. It is Canaan, son of Ham's line, who's cursed. So it's not all of Ham's line that's cursed. Moving on. And he looked, and behold, a well in the field, and lo, there were 3 flocks of sheep lying by it. For out of that well they watered the flocks, and a great stone was upon the well's mouth. And thither is an underused word, thither. And thither were all the flocks gathered. And they rolled the stone from the well's mouth and watered the sheep, and put the stone again upon the well's mouth in his place. And Jacob said unto them, My brethren, whence be ye? Whence be ye? Wow. And they said, Of Haran are we. And he said unto them, Know ye Laban the son of Nahor? And they said, We know him. And he said unto them, Is he well? And they said, He is well. And behold, Rachel his daughter cometh with the sheep. And he said, Lo, it's yet high day, neither is it time that the cattle should be gathered together. Water ye the sheep, and go and feed them. And they said, We cannot, until all the flocks be gathered together, until they roll the stone from the well's mouth. Then we water the sheep. So I come from a small town in the Midwest, and it's custom. Every small town can relate to this. You see this in movies and stuff. There's the coffee shop or the ag supply store, someplace, the bar. There's some place where all the older gentlemen typically get together and kind of hang out. It's the hangout spot just to get the news of what's going on in the neighborhood and everything. So-and-so's son's up to what now and that sort of thing. That's what the well is. This is why we see Isaac did the same thing when he went to find Rebekah. The well is the hangout place. It's the water. It still is today. Hang out by the water cooler in the office, The well was the place to go to get information. He's new. Jacob is new in this land. He's here to get information about Laban. He doesn't know if Laban's still alive. He doesn't know if his family's still thriving. Any of this stuff. So he doesn't want to give away too much information. What if something happened and Laban his family was convicted of some great crime, and if they found out that he was Laban's family, he'd be thrown in with them. So he's just getting a feel for the land, just like you go to a coffee shop. This is actually how my grandpa, and other people were actually hired on when, back in the day, they used to hire a new principal in a small town. You'd go to this town that person is from, and you go to the local coffee shop and just find out about the person you're about to hire for your school and everything. That's kind of what he's doing here. He's going and figuring out what's going on, getting the lay of the land, I should say, and figuring out what's happening, take an assessment of the situation in this new area. Best place to do that? At the well. That's the hangout place. So moving on. And while he yet spake with them, Rachel came with her father's sheep, and she kept them. And it came to pass when Jacob saw Rachel, the daughter of Laban, his mother's brother, and the sheep of Laban, his mother's brother, that Jacob went near and rolled the stone from the well's mouth and watered the flock of Laban, his mother's brother. And Jacob kissed Rachel and lifted up his voice and wept. And Jacob told Rachel that he was her father's brother and that he was Rebekah's son. And she ran and told her father. Now, at this point, I don't think it was like a romantic kiss that he just laid on her. I think it's more like one of those, joyous, like, I found it, I've come here, wherever you're safe, He's just happy to find out that his uncle is thriving, that everyone's doing well, and he's made this long, treacherous journey safely. So he's just happy to see his family, happy to see people who he knows that he can trust. And because remember, he had to leave kind of so that Esau, his brother, wouldn't murder him. So he's just happy to be here. He's happy to be in a place where people will know him and will help him out. And so Rebekah basically runs and tells her father. Not much else to say there, other than I just think that kiss is more of think of Italian families or something like that, more than a romantic forced upon her, yeah, you're so good looking. All right, moving on. And it came to pass when Laban heard the tidings of Jacob, his sister's son, that he ran to meet him and embraced him and kissed him again and brought him to his house. And he told Laban all these things. And Laban said to him, Surely thou art my bone and my flesh. And he abode with him the space of a month. So, all right, let's keep going. And Laban said unto Jacob, Because thou art my brother, shouldest thou therefore serve me for naught? Tell me, what shall thy wages be? Basically, he's like, you're my nephew, man. Stay with me for a month. And obviously, everyone has to work. That's the thing. In this time, everyone has to work. You don't not work. But he basically gives his nephew a job. He said, you're going to be here a month. You're working with me for a month. Name your price. Name your wages. He gives his nephew a job because families look out for each other. So he basically says, name what your wages shall be. So verse 16, and Laban had 2 daughters. 1, 2. The name of the elder was Leah, and the name of the younger was Rachel. So basically, he's like, how about your daughters? Actually, he just asked for 1. Think about that. That's the price. That's kind of funny. Work for me a month. What's your wages? How about you give me your daughter? Kind of bold. Leah was tender-eyed, but Rachel was beautiful and well-favored. So I had to look up this tender-eyed thing. I was like, is she ugly? What's this mean exactly? So what I found for tender-eyed is that it's a condition, most likely she had a condition known as ophthalmia. It was very common for people in the dry desert. It's crusted, blurry eyes. It can get kind of gross looking. But for the most part, it's just like blurry, crusted eyes, so you're dim of sight. And it can be kind of an eyesore. And also, if you can't see, you're not really taking care of yourself as much either, especially in these times. So it's not that Leah was ugly or anything like that or homely. It was just that she had this condition where her eyes were weak, and it was seen as a defect. I mean, it is kind of a defect, I guess, but that's the way it was seen then. And Rachel was beautiful So you have this daughter who's not bad looking, but she has this defect with her eyesight, and her bleary eyes are kind of an eyesore. And then you have Rachel, who's very good looking. And ironically, though, and I'm getting ahead of myself, spoiler alert, Jacob ends up taking both of them as his. He has 2 wives. It's not a common thing, so, and I'll get into that when I get to it. And he's kind of tricked into it. There's a lot of trickery going on with these ancient Jews and modern ones. Just joking. But it's Leah's line that we get Messiah from, that we get Christ, our Messiah. It's not from Rachel's line. Rachel only has Joseph and Benjamin maybe too. We'll get into that. But Jesus, the line of Christ, line of David, is not through Rachel. It's through the bleary-eyed, defected Leah. I think that says a lot. I think it says a lot because once again, even, I said this in my past videos, these patriarchs, Jacob, Isaac, Abraham, Joseph, they're not Christ. Okay, so don't put Christhood on them. They are flawed, and they see things in the superficial, the earthly. Now, they're able, for the most part of their lives, this is their blessing, to see that there's something greater than the earthly, and to somewhat understand the heavenly, and that that's what's really important. Know that, but they're not perfect. Sexy, sexy woman versus bleary-eyed woman. I want sexy woman. Even though Leah, it turns out, is probably a better person. You know, she raises her son. I mean, we don't know for sure. It doesn't get into it. But it's just interesting. Remember that Rachel's line does not lead to Christ. It's Leah's line that ends up being blessed with the Messiah. Showing that these, what we consider earthly defects, God doesn't look at things the same way we do. All right, moving on. That was way too long on that one. Sorry. Verse 18. And Jacob loved Rachel because she's hot, and said, I will serve thee 7 years for Rachel, thy younger daughter. Dude, calm down. You're a terrible negotiator. He just said, work for me a month and name thy wages. You just said 7 years. He didn't say 7 years. You should have, let him and then negotiate. Bad negotiation, Jacob. Just saying. And Laban said, it is better that I give her to thee than that I should give her to another man. Abide with me. And Jacob served 7 years for Rachel, and they seemed unto him but a few days, for the love he had for her. So 7 years flies by in his minds because he's so I shouldn't say infatuated. He's so in love with Rachel. It doesn't matter to him. 7 years, no problem. Kind of crazy to think about. But, you know, some people, like I was in the Navy for years, and you look back, it flew by. And if you're enjoying what you do and you're doing it for a goal and a purpose, time can fly by like that very easily. I think you talk to people who train for the Olympics and things like that. Time can fly by. And Laban's basically, after Jacob names his price for Rachel, he's like, yeah, better you than some scumbag. You know, I know you, I can trust you. It's funny, he doesn't really know him, though. I mean, if you think about it, but... Moving on. And Jacob said unto Laban, give me thy wife, for my days are fulfilled, that I may go in unto her. Wink, wink, go in unto her. And Laban gathered together all the men of the place, and made a feast. And it came to pass in the evening that he took Leah his daughter, and brought her to him, and he went in unto her. And Laban gave unto his daughter Leah Zilpah his maid for an handmaid. And it came to pass that in the morning, behold, it was Leah, and he said to Laban, what is this thou hast done unto me? Did not I serve with thee for Rachel? Wherefore then hast thou beguiled me? And Laban said, it must not be so done in our country, to give the younger before the firstborn. So basically, and I'll keep going real quick here. Fulfill her week, and we will give thee this also for the service which thou shalt serve with me yet 7 other years. And Jacob did so and fulfilled her week, and he gave him Rachel his daughter to wife also. And Laban gave to Rachel his daughter Bilhah his handmaid to be her maid. And he went in also unto Rachel, and he loved also Rachel more than Leah, and served with him yet 7 other years. So, well, first off, notice what I said about these ancient Jews being trickeries. Laban agreed. Jacob specifically named, I'll work for you 7 years, you give me Rachel, those are my wages. Okay, cool, shake on it, whatever they did. But the whole while, Laban was planning on giving him Leah, because in their country it wasn't right for the oldest daughter to be married before the younger one. And he knew it would be hard to get anyone to marry Leah because of her defect. So he tricks Jacob. He must have thought the old, what's the old saying? It's better to beg forgiveness than to ask permission, is kind of what he did here. It's very trickery. I think Jacob used trickery to get Esau's blessing, I guess, too. So a lot of these Jews are very trickery guys, these ancient Jews. But Jacob's like, what the F? Like, he wakes up. Probably, they had a big feast. Basically, that means they got Jacob drunk. And then at the end of the night, they send Leah in there, and she's the sister of Rachel. Like, if you can't see her eye condition, she probably looks similar to Rachel. And he has sex with her, consummates the marriage, and then he wakes up. He's like, what the hell, man? This isn't what we agreed to. And Laban's like, hey, she's the older one. Jacob probably put up a big fight about it, a big fuss, but they don't write all that out. He's probably like, dude, why didn't we talk about this ahead of time? But again, it was the whole beg forgiveness versus asking permission. This isn't a good message right here necessarily, but that's the thing about the Bible. They're not sugarcoating it to make themselves sound good. They're just writing the history as it happened. And there are lessons to be learned in it. But you have to understand that. They're not trying to make themselves sound holier than thou. They're just telling you as it happened. And it so happened, Laban used some shady tricks to get him to marry Leah. What I don't fully understand, and I couldn't figure out with all my research, is does he marry Rachel after a week? Because listen to this. Fulfill her week, and we will give thee this also for the service which thou shalt serve with me yet 7 other years. And Jacob did so and fulfilled her week, and he gave him Rachel his daughter to wife also. And Laban gave to Rachel his daughter Bilhah his handmaid to be her maid. And he went in also unto Rachel, and he loved also Rachel more than Leah, and served with him yet 7 other years. It makes it sound as though after a week he marries Rachel and then has to serve 7 more years for her, but he gets her before the 7 years. The way I always understood the story is that he did 7 years, got Leah, did 7 more years, and then got Rachel. But rereading it, it really makes it sound as though he does 7 years, marries Leah, 1 week later, marries Rachel, does his time for Rachel after he marries her. Read it. I've read it over again and again, different translations. It's the same thing, and all the commentaries and research that I did, no one could come up with like a clear answer for me. So I'm going based on the way that it's written, that he did not have to do 14 years before he got both of his wives. He did 7 years, got Leah, supposed to get Rachel, did a week with Leah, then got Rachel. And that would make sense, honestly, if you read the rest of the story, because it talks about how Rachel is barren, but Leah is fertile, and that's why Leah gets all these children early on. But if you were with only one woman for 7 years before you got your second wife, then of course she would have the children before Rachel. And so really, I'm gonna just look at this other one here, different translation. Verse 20, blah, 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 where are we at? Laban said, it is better that I give her unto you. No, that's not it. Verse 29, that's what I'm looking for. Laban gave his servant, Jacob made love to Rachel also, and his love for Rachel was greater than his love for Leah. And he worked for Laban another 7 years. Yeah, again, that's the New International Version. He marries Rachel before he pays the second 7 years. He pays this up front for Leah, and then he pays after the fact for Rachel. And now 2 wives is not the common thing. In fact, that's not really the way God usually intends it or wants it. There are exceptions, because righteousness and justice is not always across the board the same in every situation. And if you don't understand that, then you have a shallow mind. And I'm sorry for you. But there are instances in the Old Testament especially where multiple wives is the thing. And I'm not even sure if God's necessarily 100% a-okay with that. He just knows that's the way it has to be for things to work out the way they need to. But the whole 2 wives thing is not the way that it normally was, and it wasn't even the way that Jacob wanted it to be. You know, he just wanted Rachel. So 2 wives was not like out of the question, but you hear these people talk about how polygamy in the Bible is like a big thing and it's okay. No, it's not really okay. It's very out of the ordinary. It's not the norm. It's not necessarily how it's supposed to be. And you see that for sure as time continues. You know, more and more people are able to sustain in their own family, the less need it is for multiple women to have one man protecting them who has all the power. All right, moving on. Verse 31. And when the Lord saw that Leah was hated, see, this is what I don't get. Earlier, it just says that he loved Rachel more than Leah. It doesn't say anything about hated. I even made note of that. You know, it doesn't say hate, it just loves Rachel more. And that's kind of hard to avoid. If you have multiple wives, you're probably going to have a favorite. But then it moves on and says, and when the Lord saw that Leah was hated, he opened her womb, but Rachel's was barren. So I don't know if that means Jacob hated Leah, or if Rachel hated Leah, or who is it that is that's hating Leah. But God certainly took pity on her and opens her womb. And Leah conceived and bare a son, and she called his name Reuben, meaning see a son. That's funny. And she said, surely the Lord hath looked upon my affliction. Now therefore my husband will love me. And she conceived again, and bare a son, and said, because the Lord hath heard that I was hated, he hath therefore given me this son also. And she called his name Simeon, which means hearing, because God heard. And she conceived again, and bare a son, and said, now this time will my husband be joined unto me, because I have borne him three sons. Therefore was his name called Levi, meaning joined. Makes sense? And she conceived again, and bare a son, and she called now, will I praise the Lord? Therefore she called his name Judah, and left bearing. So Judah means praise. Pretty sure it's Judah is the line that Christ comes from too. I'm not 100% sure on that though. I just know it's one of the sons of Leah. Anyway, so 4 sons are given to him at the end of this chapter, all from Leah. I don't understand the hated part. I think she thinks that by giving Jacob these sons, he will love her more than he loves Rachel, but he just loves Rachel for Rachel. He doesn't love her for anything that she's giving to him. So that never really happens, unfortunately, for her. And I'm thinking more than likely you can see it kind of festers with her a little bit. And this is why a marriage is between one man and one woman, because this jealousy will come in. It will take a good woman like Leah, and it will kind of fester inside of her and cause her to lose self-esteem, and then to begin to hate and not know why people don't love her the way that other people are loved. You know, she never has a true husband, and it's a sad thing. But she does have lots of sons. She gives Jacob many sons. So this whole chapter, I tried figuring out what exactly the message is in it. There's not much of a message. It's just a historical account of what happened. I guess number one thing is when you're making a deal with a Jewish dude, be ready to be screwed. I don't know what the real message here is. I mean, you can look online, and there's a bunch of scholarly people who tell you what the message is, but those are a bunch of corny things. Basically, it's just Jacob finds his family, or his mother's family, to find a daughter. And also, the big thing here is the importance of a true marriage between one man and one woman, and how it's not good to have multiple wives, and it will lead to the deterioration of a woman's self-esteem, of the respect they have for you as your husband, because you will always pick a favorite. I really think that's the big message here. But I don't know. What do I know? I'm just a simple man. That is Genesis 29. Everyone have a wonderful afternoon, evening, good night, good morning, whatever it may be. God bless.